As the world continues to digest the news of Republican Donald Trump's win in the 2024 U.S. presidential election, we continue to get analysis on the implications of this. The Republicans also secured the Senate, hoping that they'll also achieve a majority in the House of Representatives as well. To discuss further, I'm joined by Dr. Dale McKinley. Thank you so much, Dr. McKinley, for joining us. Good to have you back again. So Trump has made a lot of promises on the economy around tax cuts, immigration, and even abortion, among other issues. Do you expect him to follow through? And why is it, do you think, that he managed to garner so much more support right across the country relative to the last time that he ran?
Yeah, I think, well, let's deal with that first question. I mean, the second question first, which is his additional support. I think basically what the economy, it was around the economy, and he picked up a lot more working class votes, particularly among minorities, which was quite surprising. The Hispanic, the latest statistics I've seen is that he got over 40% of the Hispanic vote. And that, I think, took him a lot of the swing states, a lot of the ones that that had been very close, that took him over the tops. And I think a lot of people were particularly worried about inflation, about the food prices. And these are things that worry the middle class and the working class. And I don't think the Democrats and Kamala Harris really spoke to those concerns as they should have. They focused on other issues, and I think that cost them. But let's be honest and say that it also reflects that there is a very conservative, a large portion of the United States that's very socially conservative that found Trump's positions on abortion, on women's rights, on immigration, on a whole range of things that many others found very distasteful. They support that, and that's just the reality. But I think in terms of his ability to implement many of the things he says, he will have some success. It's not just him being president, and as you mentioned, possible control of both the Senate and the House, but he's got a Supreme Court that's very, very sympathetic to his agenda. And there's many, many states and governors and others that are supportive of Trump. So I think what we're going to see is quite a lot of his agenda being implemented, particularly on immigration, particularly on social issues, cutting Affordable Health Care Act, for example, taking that on. Women's right to choice and other kinds of things where he's going to get some resistance, but I think he's going to be able probably to implement quite a bit of that agenda. Maybe not all of it, but a substantial portion. Yeah.
Dr. McKinley, tell me if I'm being naive, but what happened to the concept of the, separation of powers? I mean, you say he's got a sympathetic Supreme Court. So in the real world, that doesn't really, the concept of separation of powers doesn't really exist, does it?
No, and I don't think it has for quite some time in the United States. I think we've had a big gap between perception and reality in the United States democracy. The United States has been run by an elite for quite some time, and the Democrats are paying the price in this case, precisely because I think many Americans, they see politicians and they see the insider sort of elites as being buddies, and Trump represents some kind of disruption of this status quo. And I think that also garnered him quite a number of votes, the sense that he's going to come from the outside and he's going to shake things up and he's going to be for the ordinary person. But in the process, as we mentioned here, this separation of powers is being fundamentally destroyed because at the moment, if he has all three, both houses of Congress, he has the Supreme Court, you have state governors, you have prosecuting authorities, a federal state that he's said that Elon Musk is going to take his chainsaw to. If all of these things come to pass, then I think that's where the concern around a rising fascism, a rising authoritarianism, a rising contempt for democratic institutions comes from. And it's a real concern under Trump.
Well, we'll have the discussion about Elon Musk and his evident conflict of interest another day, because we don't have much time. So, of course, we know that this will be Mr. Trump's second iteration in office. How do you think he's going to do his presidency differently? And even though he was quite decisive in his last tenure, do you expect him to be more so, given exactly the kind of context that you've given us about the kind of power that he's going to be able to wield?
I think he'll probably be more effective this time around. And I say that with, a very big lump in my throat in some ways, because I'm obviously not a big supporter of Trump. But I think the reason why he's going to be more effective is because he's had 4 years to learn. He has a lot more technocratic people around him. He has a lot more people that are, I think, have made plans over the last 4 years around how they want to push that agenda. And I think they also understand a little bit better probably the international arena in which they want to sort of, again, take attacks to, for example, NATO, the Russia-Ukraine war, the Chinese trade issues, and these kinds of things. I don't think that means they're going to be necessarily effective or they're going to win all those battles. But I think what Trump is going to be more of a president as opposed to more of an angry individual. And he now, since he can't really have another term of office, this will be it for him, unless, of course, he changes the U.S. Constitution, which is highly unlikely, but you never know these days. Yeah. Then he's going to probably try to see this term as his legacy. So he's not going to want to go too far overboard in order to confront a lot of resistance. But I think he's going to push an agenda and say that this conservative agenda, this sort of nationalist, this protectionist agenda is his legacy. And that, in that case, I think he'll be quite effective in pushing that, and also in pulling together a lot of the more conservative right-wing forces globally. Just remember, this right-wing or move to the right is happening in Europe. It's happening in parts of Asia. So I think Trump is going to see his legacy and his rule as something that's not specifically just about the United States, but pushing an international agenda of those kinds of perspectives.
Very interesting indeed. Dr. Dale McKinley, thank you so much for speaking to us. He's a political analyst.